Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Photo Mama podcast, conversations on all things motherhood, photography, and life. My name is Elsie Kifuengare. I'm a photographer and a mom of two.
And I'm Ikwajo Mercy Haruna, but you can call me Mercy. I'm also a photographer and a mom of two.
Welcome back to another episode of Photo Mama podcast. We are going to be sharing with you an interview for our first guest.
Shout out to our first guest. Okay, won't say anything about who they are yet, but we'll introduce them to you shortly. We're super excited. But before we go into that, we just wanted to do a quick check-in. How are you doing, Elsie?
I'm doing okay. I'm excited because now it's summer. The weather is getting better. No, I take that back. This England. Okay, I'm excited.
The weather is not weathering.
The weather is not weathering. Even I can't speak because I'm annoyed. 1 minute you're wearing light clothes, the next minute at night you're wearing socks, hoodie. You should see me. I'm in my hoodie.
You have to bring layers, but then, especially when I go out with the kids, I don't want to carry layers and layers and bags of things. So I'm like, I want to travel light.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can't travel light. Make sure you bring your umbrella just in case it decides to rain for no reason.
Yeah.
But at least there's a shift in the air, you know, it's not as cold, it's sunnier.
That's true.
Hay fever pollen is here in full force. So that's how you know that summer's coming.
You know?
Yeah. Otherwise, you're all right?
Yes, I am fine. I am very, very well. Except of this weather not weathering, but yeah, I'm generally okay. I can say that. Yeah. How about you, Mercy?
I'm good too. I feel like I'm going through a lot of adjustments in my life at the moment, but overall, I can say I'm doing great. Yeah, I'm in a good mental place.
That's really nice to hear. And I hope all our listeners who are listening, you're all doing great as well. Welcome back to another episode of our podcast. And yeah, we can't wait to share with you. Yeah. We're so excited.
Our guest on this episode is a lovely, lovely mama photographer who we've both known through the Black women photographers community. If you don't know who we are, we are a global collective of women photographers from all over the world. The community was started by a lovely lady called Polly Irungu in 2020 at the height of the pandemic. And it's grown. We have over 1,000 members from all over the world, and it's just so amazing to see the community grow. Yeah, so our guest today is someone who we've met through the community and known through the community, and it's so great to have her feature on the episode and get to know her a bit more, get to know about her life as a mom, her life as a photographer, and how she's juggling and balancing, you know, all of that.
Yeah. In line with that whole community vibe, she is very far away from us. So be ready. Yeah. And as always, at the end of every podcast, we always have our details on how you can join in the conversation, how you can follow us, how you can share the podcast. So please listen to this conversation, listen all the way to the end, and to get those details. They're also on our show notes anyway. So yeah.
Let's go ahead and jump into today's episode.
In today's episode, we are welcoming Montreal-based photographer Karene-Isabelle Jean-Baptiste. I hope we've said your name correctly.
That is correct.
She is interested in capturing and recording the world around her. She worked as an engineer for many years before delving into the world of photography full-time. She looks for elusive moments of magic that can appear and disappear in an instant within a scene or a human face. Her aim is to have these moments endure and express the depth of feeling that at times go unnoticed. Karene was awarded the Photojournalism Diversity Grant by the newspaper Presse in 2021 and received one of the inaugural grants by Black women photographers and Nikon USA in 2022. She was elected as a Woman of the Year in 2020 by Best Health magazine for a photo project on Black women in healthcare. She has been featured in several publications like The Loop, CTV National News, NPR, The Guardian, and many more. And her client list includes La Presse, CBC, Globe and Mail, McGill University, Nonsense Magazine, Report on Business Magazine, and The Loop again. Karene is a recipient of several awards and grants, and the most recent being selected as the American Photography 39 winner for her image Under the Mimosa, of which she has won in 2 previous editions. She has 2 children who are 14 and 11. Welcome to the podcast, Karene.
Thank you guys.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Is there anything we've missed? Is there anything you want to tell?
I think that's plenty.
Our listeners? Yeah?
I think it's plenty.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Very accomplished.
Thank you.
Photographer.
Thank you.
Amazing.
It's weird to have it read back.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's good to have your accomplishments read to you, because sometimes you can get complacent. I don't know. Just
You're like
forget
on to
what
the
you've
next.
done, and then it's
You're just like,
yes, exactly.
yeah.
You win, you move on.
Yeah.
And someone else is sort of bringing
Yeah.
them back. You're like, I've done that. I did that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, welcome. We're really excited to have you talk to us about your photography and your motherhood journey.
Thanks.
So yeah, let's begin.
Yes, let's.
We know about your photography. Tell us more about your motherhood journey.
Oh wow. So my like you said, I have a son that's 14. My daughter is 11. About to turn 15 and 12 later this year. I'm so sorry.
That's fine.
Don't be sorry.
Karene is apologizing because her cat has just jumped on her shoulders, because I know you can't.
This
you're
is the
wondering why you're
strangest
apologizing.
moment because why now? Because why now? And so
I think we're
Is it
gonna
a girl or a boy?
it's a girl.
Oh, she wants to get involved.
She wants to get involved. She's like, what? So you think you're going to have a conversation and how to have me there? Okay. I don't think so. So
Yeah.
So they're turning 12 and 15. I started my photography very much, I think, by taking their picture. Like I took pictures before I was a mom, but certainly becoming a mom got me to use my camera much more, I would say. And they were it was funny because they were very much involved in my decision as to whether I would do photography full time or not. Because it just seemed so crazy to do this when I had these, obviously this responsibility of being a mom. But about 2 years ago now, 2 years ago now, we had a birthday party. I had a surprise birthday party for me. And so my son was 13 at the time, and he got up and he made the most beautiful speech and said, my mom, stopped working. He said, I was fired. I wasn't fired, but he was like, my mom stopped working at this place, and I'm so proud of her for deciding to do this. She looks happy. And when I wake up every day, like I feel inspired by the fact that she does this. And so it was sort of impromptu, and it was an interesting way to see how my decision to sort of pursue my dream was affecting them or him. And that was really, really touching. So being a mom and getting to do this, but having them sort of, embark with me on this has been really wonderful.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear. I love that we're growing with them in our journeys as parents and as creatives. It's amazing. I certainly feel the same way about growing up with my kids. As you know a little bit about me, I've gone to school and started my early career and done everything with them in tow, and it's every day I look at them and I see the journey literally growing before my eyes. It's amazing, isn't it?
It really is. It really is.
Yeah, you spoke about your photography before you became a mom.
Yeah.
Why don't you talk us through that?
So I
How was
was,
that?
so in high school, I remember taking a class on darkroom photography. I mean, I don't think there was no other kind. If I'm, revealing my age, that was photography. To me, in the dark was to take photography. And I used to really enjoy it. I was always the friend with the camera. There was always the one. I was always the one. I brought my camera everywhere. I took pictures of everyone just because it always felt important to record moment. But it wasn't something that I took seriously. It was just something that I liked doing. I thought it was important to record moments, and so I did that. But again, becoming a mom around, there was sort of like a shift, because now, yes, we had some, we're moving in toward digital. So that possibility of taking that many more pictures, was sort of becoming available, right? And so the beauty with that is that they're always doing something interesting, right? In those early years, there's just early months, everything is something that you want to record and be able to keep. And so I'd found a few softwares online, and I'd edit the images, and I'd print everything, and a lot of it was around recording them. So my pre-mom photography was really very much about my friends, and as I became a mom, it sort of shifted inwards a lot, if only because I was spending the most time with them, and they were, again, they had so much to give.
Yeah.
and so they
relate.
became my focus. Yeah.
I was just saying that I feel like that's something that a lot of mums will probably relate to. As in that, because we spend so much time with our kids, they become the subject of our work.
Absolutely.
If only to just document the fleeting moments.
Yeah, and they do, and I mean, as you know, it changes so fast. I look at, my daughter when we just brought her home. I look at her, a month later. I look at her 3 months later. I mean, we're looking at a completely different baby. Her posture is different. Everything about them is so amazing, and they feel worthy of taking the camera out. You're exhausted. You may not have showered as much as you wanted. You're sleep deprived. You're wondering, how am I even walking around this world with so little sleep? But then they do something, and you're like, oh yeah, okay, let me get the camera for this. It feels like the camera and the kids sort of give you that extra push in a way.
They do. They did for me anyway. What about you, Elsie? Did your kids sort of push you to create in those early days? I feel like if my kids were the thing that kept driving me to keep taking out the camera and keep going.
Kind of, but not in the sense of like a photographer. I don't know how to explain this. I was just photographing like a mom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rather than a photographer.
Yes.
But that's taking...
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like in general.
Yes.
Like if I was to speak to any other mom, they would just take all these fleeting moments, recording their first meal, breastfeeding and all this stuff.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then, it's now that later when I settled into motherhood, that's when I started thinking like a photographer. Like,
okay.
By the way, I should start taking pictures. Like
that was definitely the same.
That was the same.
Yeah.
Because like there's forethought. Like before taking those images, there's thought behind them. Like, but previously when you're a mom, there's no thought. You're just doing it just to record.
Yes.
The whole thing is just a record, a documentation of your life in this motherhood role. But now it's more like, no, I need to put some thought into this. Or which other moms,
to write.
Yeah, like you need to plan. Like even now my kids are very conscious of the camera because I'm constantly photographing them, and they're like, oh, she's brought out the camera again.
I have a question for Karen about that. Do you find that the relationship of your kids to the camera is changing as they grow older, as they're teenagers now, that they want to be photographed less and less? And how are you then replacing them being your subject with other things? Yeah,
so in so I was using the camera again because, the kids were small and I was taking pictures like Elsie. It was about recording. It wasn't about art. It was really about, making sure that I caught that. And so to illustrate that, my son, who's the eldest, I have a million pictures of. My daughter, I mean, not as many, just because it's like the novelty wasn't there as much. It wore off. Right? Yeah, so it's not the same the second time around. So it's definitely a different experience. So I was really about, their progress and whatnot. And in terms of, being intentional and looking at it from a photographer's eye, I would say it really came later.
I totally feel you on that, because as I explained, that's how I felt. Like for me, recording, documenting, and then later on becoming photographer mom.
Yeah, intentional. Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, the way that shifted was when people started asking me, because I'd post on Instagram, you know, I'd post and I'd post and I'd post, and people would be like, oh, so do you want to talk? Do you want to come share about your body of work? And I'm like, body of work? It's a body of work. Okay, now I have to write a artist statement to go with it, and really start intentionally thinking about process, like what camera am I using? I was doing black and white anyway, so I felt like that project actually naturally formed. I'm talking about This Is Home. It naturally came out without me even trying too hard.
Right.
And maybe that's why I also enjoyed it, because it was just kind of, it was organic.
So with your work, Karene, how do you find yourself like navigating your photography journey? Is it constantly like photographing your motherhood journey and stories, or you find yourself even picking up other projects and saying, okay, let me give this side of my life a rest and continue on with other projects?
So photographing my children in a really sort of intentional way really started more, I would say, around the pandemic, just because they were my subjects. I mean, you know, we weren't seeing anybody, we weren't going anywhere. So I sort of turned the camera towards them in that moment. And so that's how the project around the green dress, the work between my daughter and my niece sort of came out of, you know, being in seclusion and, you know, getting them to be my models for the project, because I had a lot of time observing them. I found there was something interesting in there. I don't think I really set out when I was doing photography to really take the pictures of my kids. In fact, I didn't want them to be on social media at all. I didn't want pictures of them to be out there. That was sort of a decision my husband and I had made way back when we started having kids. You know, they're not on my Facebook. Like sometimes people would take pictures and tag them, and, you know, I didn't want to be rude, and I would let it slide, but it wasn't something that I wanted. But then when I thought, okay, well, I can have them in a lot of the shots, we don't see their faces. And when we do, I thought, okay, well, if we do it in a sort of an artistic way, and there's sort of like a gray zone, you know, is it really them? Is it not them? I sort of wanted that, because I didn't want them to be the focus, to be honest. But the interesting thing is, so the series, I did a series with my daughter and my niece, and one with my daughter and my mom. And it's funny because, so I have these pictures, they're great. And, you know, one of the pictures I used on my phone, and my daughter was like, oh, well, does my brother also have this kind of picture? And I said, no. And she's like, oh, well, good then. And now I'm like, okay, well, now, exactly. But then I'm like, no, okay, now I have to have him also. I have to think of a way of including him, if only out of fairness. But I think, you know, so the pandemic drove some of that, and you know, the sibling rivalry is also driving using them as models.
Going back to the question that I had asked before, was like, how are you navigating this teenage years?
Yes. Both of my kids are very relaxed about taking pictures, because I don't take them too often. Like because they're not the main focus of the pictures, and I really just take out my camera every once in a while, I think that they're more open to it. I think that they would be, knowing my children, than they would be if the camera was pointed at them constantly, you know, because they're teenagers. But even from young, they've always known that, you know, if they're not interested, if they don't want to, they're free to say no. I've always asked before. And so they've come into their own even more and said, you know, if it happens sometimes, it's okay. All the time, no.
Yeah, I love that. And that's something to think about, especially with those of us whose focus is on capturing motherhood and family, but like specifically our own family, is at what point do you start to like respect them and sort of take seriously their own decisions? I think I've told the story a few times, but I'll share it again. When my son was 6, I was I posted a video of him on stories, and then I turned to him and I was like, look, everyone loves your video. And he said, oh, Mom, could you ask me next time before you post, please? And that was like, oh, okay. He was 6.
Wow.
I was like, well, I guess I'm doing something right.
Yes.
But I didn't expect it so early that, he would start to exert his agency. No, I don't want to be photographed every time. And that made me rethink what I was doing. Like, do I really want them to be the focus of my work? If so, how? And if I do document them, is it something that I want to show the world, or is it just something that we keep for ourselves? Because that's
Because there's a
valid too.
difference.
Work that we make for ourselves is also valid as work that is exhibited.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's also really important to constantly have these conversations with family members, not just our kids, even like older family members or peer level family members. Like every situation we find ourselves in, as photographers, I think ethically we should be conscious of asking for permission, even if it's not verbally said. The minute you walk into a room, because everybody in my circle know I'm a photographer, but the minute I whip up my camera, they're all already posing and everything, which I don't like. And I always point that I'm always pointing that out. I don't like posed photographs. Just be yourself. Just be comfortable. When I want posed photographs, I'll ask. I'll say, stand here, do this, do that. But I do understand the whole permission, asking for permission. And I love the fact that our kids are learning to set their own boundaries with regards to that and being shown into social media, which nowadays can be minefield.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I've seen the weirdest comment. I'll give you an example. So there's a picture of my niece and my daughter, and they're running. It's called Chasing Joy. And I went somewhere and I showed this picture. And so, as I'm talking about the image, I explain, my daughter is 10, my niece is 14 on this picture, blah, 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 blah. And so I say, this is the picture, this is why I love it, blah, blah. And one of the gentlemen is like, oh, it's almost sensual. I was like, they're 10 and 14, right? No. So it's a picture of their feet. There's nothing, I don't know, there's nothing to the image other than the emotion of them running for me when I look at it. And the reason I bring this up is because you never know how people are interpreting images of your children. And that's why it reminded me again of why I'm so protective and why we need to be aware of the people that are following us and sort of what because you're like, this is innocuous. Right. There's nothing here. And yet, I'm
so glad we're having this conversation, honestly. It's something that I've been thinking about a lot. And it does stop me from sharing my work because I spend so much time with my kids. Yeah. They're automatically the subject of my work.
Of course.
A lot of times I have to hang back and think, do I want to post that? Nah. Go do something else. And so, I'm every day I'm thinking, maybe I need to just move away from document. Fair enough. But I don't need to not everything needs to go on Instagram or
it can be on your website. It can be, I find that for some people, the ease makes it easy to comment things that they wouldn't if they had to search. Because it's a project and it's on your website, it feels different, I think, for some people than it does on social media. I've thought about that because people can be strange.
Strange.
Yeah.
That is so true. This is almost like you talking about a challenge with regards to your photography and motherhood. Can you go into more depth about what else have you faced with regards to juggling both careers? Careers. And I say careers very lightly.
Yeah. No, because obviously the biggest challenge when they were younger was really, around childcare. I'm going to be gone for X amount of time. Can somebody watch them? As my oldest has gotten older, it's become easier because he's responsible enough, to stay home and he can stay with my daughter. And so it's made it easier. But those long stretches when they were younger was difficult because who's gonna, I need to go, I need to do this. So it felt like my movement was a little bit impeded by the fact that, the children were so young. I know some people can bring their kids. I'd never felt like my kids were good candidates for that just because they're high energy,
I love the way you put that.
Yeah.
Good candidates.
That's so true.
Yeah. You know your kids.
They're very curious, they want to get in there, or if not, for me, it was a distraction. Like I need to, and that's when I realized, even working with an assistant, I think for me is a little bit more complicated. I am very much in my thought. I need to be focusing on something. I find it hard for people to have conversations with me when I'm trying to take pictures. And I'm not talking about the subject. I'm really talking about people that could be around. I know that I get distracted easily. And so having the children with me would be very difficult for me to be able to do a good job. I've had people be very kind and say, bring them along. If it's going to be complicated, and the answer almost always is no.
I totally feel you.
Because
and it's also me time, right?
And it's me time. Yeah. And I want to give my best to, my subject, my client, whatever the case may be. I don't want them to feel like I'm distracted, because I know that I would be distracted. And I don't feel like I would be doing a good job if my mind was in two places at once.
I was going through your website and I really wanted to talk to you about some of your projects. Like when we introduced you in the intro, like you've won a few awards and grants through your projects, especially the Black Women in Healthcare project. Do you want to talk us through how that project came about? What was your process?
So that project was in 2020. So it was Black Women in Healthcare, as you know. I was home at the time. My husband likes to make fun of me because I was, home, not wanting to go anywhere. And he would say, you can step outside. COVID's not waiting on the other side of the door to kind of like jump on your back and infect you. I was like, okay, so you say. And so I was talking to friends because, we're doing a lot of Zooms and stuff like that, and we're on Messenger, and I was talking to friends who were in the healthcare field. Some of them were terrified. They had no choice but to go to work. That's their job. And I had people who, used to be school psychologists who all of a sudden, were asked to go into long-term health facilities because they needed people. Right? Their services were no longer required in the schools. They needed to treat people. And so again, it was the whole suiting up in a way. They were wrapping their hair, putting on the mask, and they were terrified. And as I'm listening to them tell their stories, I'm watching the news and I don't see them on the news, right? Because when they're interviewing people, they're talking to these white women, and if I do see them on screen, they're somewhere in the back, maybe talking to someone else, but there's never that interaction. And when there was an interaction, it was a lot about, refugees or people who were in a precarious situation because of their immigration, who were working, sort of devoting themselves. And that sort of felt like a paternalistic way of looking at these people. And I'm thinking, I know people who do all kinds of things in the system, and why am I not seeing them? And the more I thought about it, the more I realized if it's not documented, it doesn't exist. When we look back on this period, is it going to be easy to say they were never there? What did they bring to us? And I thought, no, I need to do that. Even though I didn't feel like my skills were up to par, I really didn't feel confident. I kept thinking, well, who's going to do this? If it's not me, who? And so that got me started. And so I went on Facebook. I reached out to some friends. I said, okay, guys, this is what I'm doing. If you are a Black woman in healthcare, I don't care what you do. You might be a pharmacist. If you are whatever care you're actually doing during COVID, I want to speak to you. And so that sort of got the ball rolling. And so because I was nervous, I started photographing the women in my backyard, and back then, I'm laughing because back then the hairdressers were still closed. And so a lot of them said, okay, look, I hear, hairdressers are going to be open again in maybe 2 weeks. Give me a chance to, Black women in their hair. And like, give me a chance to sit with someone first. And then we can start. So that was delayed a bit because people were like, I'm not looking my best. When I feel I'm up to par, I'll sit for you. And the response was amazing. And so I started photographing them and posting them on Instagram. And I remember one woman in particular said, I wish more people could see them. So they started sharing those images. And she one of them knew someone who worked at our local TV station and said, oh, maybe he could do a write-up for you. And I was, people say things. I said, oh, well, that's nice. Thank you. He actually called. We did the interview. He published it on a Thursday, and that day, I think it was Friday morning, and on that day, another news station called and said, we would love to speak with you. Yes, of course. We said yes. On the Sunday, I had another TV station. This time it was going to be a TV interview. They wanted to talk to me. I said, okay. My answer was always yes. Whatever opportunity, don't hesitate. Am I ready? No. Is my hair perfect? No. It's fine. We'll do the interview. Anyways, we did the interview. She said it'll be on TV at 5. And then she called me back. She said, well, we're not going to be doing it at 5. We're going to be on at 11, but now it's going to be national. So instead of just a local broadcast, it's going to be Canada coast to coast. So we're talking about, from Newfoundland, from the east coast of Canada to the west coast. And I thought, oh my God. And when I don't know how the news is in the UK, but they start the presenter will start with the 2 main stories or the 3 main stories. And I was one of them. And I was so moved, not because, sorry, I get emotional, not because I got to be interviewed, although that was really nice. It was finally getting these women to be seen. And once it was aired, so many women reached out and said, we finally feel seen and heard. We've worked in this industry for so long, always to the side, not heard, not appreciated. And with this, we finally see each other. And people were sending the loveliest emails saying, my boss saw the interview and wanted to thank me for my work. My friends are telling me, keep up the good job. And it was so moving. And I got to hear so many amazing stories of just people feeling like we exist, we're appreciated. Thank you. I mean, what more? I mean, I'd always thought I would love to do some documentary work, not understanding really how it's done, but feeling like whatever work you've done makes a difference and it has an impact on people's life. That was fantastic.
I love this so much.
I'm ready to go with you.
You're crying. Yeah. I love what you said there about, if not you, then who? Like, if you don't do this project, then who? Because it's so important that we document the places and the stories that we have access to. Because if we don't, then someone else who is some rando is going to come and document those stories. Yeah. And we should be telling our stories.
Absolutely.
And I'm so grateful that you took the bull by the horns and did it, because now people who wouldn't have been seen because no one else thought to do it are being seen.
And if I can just add, there was one woman who said, I don't know, life is different for everybody. Her husband had left her, whatever, just a little bit before the pandemic. She's like, I finally felt beautiful, felt worthy. Like she gets up, at 4:00 in the morning to be able to be at her job at 5:30. And she said, I finally got to see myself and other people got to see me and I felt beautiful. And I was like, I mean, what other thanks is there? If only from that, I was like, okay, this was worth it.
And let this be a lesson. Yeah. And let this be a lesson to anyone listening and thinking, oh, I'm just a small timer just doing whatever in my corner. No. The work that you're doing is very important because no one else is doing it.
Yes.
And you just don't know whose lives you're changing, whose stories that would have gone untold that you're telling.
Yeah.
So keep at it. Don't get discouraged because you're mom somewhere. Oh, there's none of that. I'm just a mom business.
Yeah.
No.
Do that project.
Or thinking that, somebody else has done it. Why am I doing it?
Yeah.
Sorry, the way they've done it might be different from the way you're gonna do it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because when I saw, I think Vogue had done a cover with a healthcare worker, and I thought, oh my God, this is so good. There's no way. And so when I submitted the images to American Photography, I submitted a series and they took that. I thought, oh wow. Okay, it's not bad.
And another thing you said that was interesting is that you did it anyway.
Right, because because it's people say that, you do it scared, but it's really true. You never, especially as a creative, I think you second guess yourself. I mean, I maybe I should just speak for myself. I second guess myself a lot, because I have this vision in my mind, and sometimes it feels like there's such a gap between what I envision and what I can produce. But you do it and you do it scared, but it's done, right? Because you can have all the most amazing ideas, but if they stay in your folder or they stay trapped in your mind, it doesn't, it doesn't go anywhere.
The other project that I really, really like to dive into is the green dress. What is this green dress? I'm seeing it everywhere. That image is so beautiful. Like,
Thank you.
talk us through it.
So I was thrift shopping and I went into the store. I mean, it's not a fancy thrift store at all. It's just a degular store. And I walk in and the most amazing green dress is hanging there. And I thought, this must come home with me. That's it. I mean, I don't even need to look at anywhere. I would have fought someone for that dress. I can tell you that right now. And so I did a little bit of research, come to find out, it's made in 1942 by this Canadian designer. And, it's the same year my mom was born in Haiti. And the dress is in absolute immaculate condition. So whomever had the dress prior to me loved that dress, because for it to be that old and to be as well taken care of, it mattered to someone. And so as I was sitting there, I thought, isn't this truly Canadian? Canadian dress made by a Canadian designer. And here it is in the hands of this woman whose daughter immigrated from Haiti. And I get to have it in my home and hopefully pass it on to my daughter someday, because it really is like a gorgeous piece of couture. And as I was thinking, I thought, maybe I could get my daughter to wear it. Maybe I could get my mom to wear it. The next person to wear it should be me. But really, truly, this is, part of being a mom. This is my daughter's cat. I did not want a cat, but here we are today. And so, and so I just started. I had her take the picture, and there was something about the light that just felt so beautiful. In that moment, I thought, yeah. You know what? I think I have something there. And so I posed her in different ways, played with the light a little bit. And I thought, okay, this is something. But it can only work if my mom can also be in the dress. And so I got her to wear the dress. Obviously, I think the end is having me in the dress, but currently does not fit. So we need to figure out a way to make it work. I know I bought it for me.
Come on, girl.
But it feels like an heirloom, even though it's not really one. But the way that it connects all three of us felt so beautiful. And I thought, oh yeah, I want to be able to put that out there and share that. And I wanted, especially the pictures with my daughter, I had set up these sort of foam cores, and the way that the light was coming in felt very almost Van Gogh. It felt like almost like a Renaissance painting in a way, because the light was so soft. And so I'm using a 50 mil art lens, and aperture is maybe 1.4, and it just feels like feel the texture a little bit more. It feels there's a warmth to the image, even though it's not necessarily, it's not a yellow, but there's a warmth in the emotion that I was able to capture in that way. And it's probably one of my favorite images.
It's truly stunning.
Thank you.
It's really, really beautiful. Especially I don't know, my favorite has to be the one with the flowers. Like, holding the flowers. Because I think we were constantly seeing the image, but there's something about it. Like you said, the way the light is on your daughter and also on the flowers. The flowers are in front of her face. The whole conversation of you wanting your kids to be in front of the camera, but not necessarily seeing them.
Yeah.
You just know that they're there, not seeing their face. There's something about that to be spoken about. Yeah, if you're listening, please go on to Karen's website and have a look at the work and all of our work that we've mentioned in the podcast. So yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The one with the flowers is, I had submitted that to CNN for Mother's Day last year, and the person who selected it said, sort of like you, she said, there's a mystery because we don't see her face. It gives anyone an opportunity to sort of be there, right? there's the anonymity adds to the image in that way.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Mercy, do you want to add?
Yeah, is there anything you're working on right now that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, so there are two projects that I've been working on, that I want to work on. So one of them is, I had started, so when I won the grant for Black women photographers, it was around, community and the Haitian community that migrated to Quebec. And so as time has gone on, I've wanted to shift it a little bit because I realized that the deeply personal feels universal in a way, and I was going too broad. Even though I had taken images, it didn't feel right. And so my godmother passed away 2 years ago now. And I wanted to tell the story of how my mom, my godmother, my aunt, and another good friend of them lived together in Montreal when they first emigrated. And so I really want to center the story around, what it was like when they first came, that the support system that they built together. And so that's one of the projects that I'm working on. We hadn't seen my aunt in, ever since COVID had come, because she lives in the US. And so I started taking images, and so she's coming again this summer, and we're going to be together, and I'm hoping that I can add to the body of work in that way. So that's one of the projects. And the other one is about the neighborhood that I live in. And I really want to, because I'm going to be using film for the first time in a long, long time. So I'm a little bit nervous, I won't lie, about getting it right, getting the exposure right. I'm, so which is why I've been delaying it for so long, because I think I'm nervous. And so not so much about meeting the people, but about using the camera. And I know that I have to use it and expect to fail, but I have to be honest, I think that's scary to me.
And the whole overthinking that us creatives always have. We're always overthinking things.
Don't. Just do it.
Do it.
I know. I look at that camera every day. It's sitting right there. The weather is beautiful. And I'm like,
just go out and
practice.
Just use one with it and experiment. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, film is expensive, ladies. This is not a cheap mistake.
It is. Trying to find some cheap film. I know.
Yes.
I know that doesn't help. You'll be fine. You do great, and we can't wait to see the outcome of both projects.
Thank you.
Excited to see it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So please do share it with us, and so
I will
we can share it with our audience. And I guess we should probably wrap this up.
I've really enjoyed the conversation and getting to know you better. We've kind of known each other and known of each other online for a while now, so it's really good to meet you and talk to you and know you a little bit better.
Likewise.
Again, it's been a long, long time since we've talked to each other. I mean, as in the whole motherhood life, like knocking us for six.
Yes.
But I really appreciate these small opportunities to come together and just have this conversation. So thank you so much for gracing us with your presence. But before we go, we have some fire questions we're going to ask you right now. So are you ready?
Yes, absolutely.
Mercy, take it.
Karen, what music or book or podcast are you currently listening to?
I just finished Spare by Prince Harry.
Did you like it?
I did like it.
Do you recommend?
I would recommend, yes. I enjoyed it.
And second question, if you weren't a photographer, what would you be?
Well, would I go back to being an engineer? I guess. I mean, there's always that to fall back on, I guess you could say.
Yeah. What kind of engineer were you?
I was an industrial engineer. So it was about optimization and continuous improvement.
Women in tech.
There we go. Thank you so much, Karene, for joining us and having this conversation with us. We really do appreciate having you with us in this podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. Thank you for the platform. You guys are doing amazing work. It's not easy. I know when you have children running around, there's a lot of planning involved. It's a lot, but the work is appreciated. Having that opportunity to speak, to hear you guys, to hear other people speak about their experience is really moving.
Oh, thank you.
That's the boost we needed, right, Elsie?
Yes, the boost we really needed, honestly.
Thank you, Karen.
We can't be having these conversations on the back end and then not sharing it. So yeah, much appreciated. Thank you.
I appreciate you guys.
So, if you're interested in joining the conversations, we have a Google form you can fill out in our show notes. If where you're listening to this podcast does not support show notes, you can find the form on our website, www.photomamapodcast.com.
And if you have any questions, you can email us at photomamapodcast@gmail.com. Also, you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at photomamapod.
See you on the next episode. Bye!
See you on the next episode. Bye!